Alrighty, we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katie Johnson. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the program manager for AAPD's internship program. A brief visual description: I am a white person with fuzz brown hair. Today I have on a black silk button-up, some hoop earrings, and I'm seated in my home office in Washington, D.C. Thank you all for joining today's webinar, our session, sharing some information about the 2025 AAPD Summer Internship Program. I am so excited to just share a little bit about what this program is, as well as how you can apply. You'll get a chance to meet with some alum today, and hopefully we'll save a lot of time to answer your questions. Before we begin, I just wanted to share a few housekeeping items. So this meeting is being recorded. We will share out this recording over email and on our website within the next week or so after the webinar. We'll also share a copy of these slides so that everybody has the information from today. For access, we have closed captioning available. You can access the closed captioning by hitting the CC button on the Zoom toolbar. If you prefer to view your captions in a separate screen, you can also use the stream text link, which will be sent again in the chat box. We also have ASL interpretation today. The ASL interpreters will be spotlit, so you should be able to see them on your view. If you're having an issue seeing the interpreter, you might try switching which Zoom view you have. Or if you're viewing this on your mobile phone, you might swipe to view the interpreters in a different way, or move to using a different type of device like a computer. If at any point you can't see the ASL interpreters, you can DM our AAPD tech support and we'll troubleshoot to make sure you have access. Today we have the chat box. It was so great to see some of your messages saying hello and where you're calling in from. Whenever you need to send a message in the chat box, just make sure to click to everyone instead of just to hosts and panelists, unless you do want to contact the hosts and panelists. During the presentation itself, we want to limit how much activity is happening in the chat box, just so that people are able to focus on the presentation. But if you have questions that come up throughout, we will be using the Q&A feature on Zoom. Again, the Q&A feature is on that Zoom toolbar, and you can add any questions that you have. At the very end of today, we'll use the Q&A box to run our Q&A session. So we will only be looking there for your questions. So please add any questions directly to the Q&A box and not in the chat. Awesome. So we can go ahead and get started sharing again our agenda for today. I will share a pretty brief overview about the AAPD Summer Internship Program, about the process for applying and the timeline. And then I'm excited to introduce you to two AAPD alumni who will share a little bit about their experience. At the very end, we'll have time for question and answer, where myself, as well as our two alumni, will help answer any questions that you have. On this slide, I included a photograph from the 2024 AAPD cohort. We're standing outside in a courtyard, and I always just love to show a photo of our cohort since this is our big recruitment webinar for our 2025 cohort, and this could be you next summer. So a little bit about our program. The AAPD Internship Program is a professional and career development opportunity for disabled students and recent graduates. So to apply, you need to identify as a person with a disability, and you need to be a current student or a recent graduate from a US-based program or university. Main goals for our program, we have three main goals. First is focused on career. So we hope our interns, after participating in the program, will be able to better explore the kinds of careers they want to have, access meaningful employment, and see themselves as disabled professionals. The second is focused on leadership. So throughout the summer, you'll be gaining leadership and advocacy skills. And then the third goal is focused on community. So we hope by the end of the summer, people feel a sense of belonging to the broader disability community. So about 2025, so this coming summer, summer 2025, we will be having a hybrid internship program. This means that some of our interns will be in person in Washington, D.C., staying in the dorms together, or they'll be fully remote, joining from wherever they live, participating fully remotely at their placement site and other aspects of the internship program. The program is 10 weeks long, running from late May through early August. Our interns work full-time internships, and it's a paid opportunity. Interns work 32 hours a week, so from Monday through Thursday full-time. And then on Friday, they participate in the Disability Advocacy Certificate Program, which is time for you to kind of build community with your cohort and learn about disability advocacy. Our interns are paid in summer 2024, the rate was about $18 an hour for 32 hours a week for those 10 weeks. So all of our interns are placed at placement sites. So that's where you do your internship. We have a wide variety of different internship placements, and it's really individualized based on what your interests and career goals are. There is a link to all of our placement sites that we've had in the past, as well as some of our possible placement sites, other organizations that have expressed interest. And all of our interns work in 4 essential areas. So they either are placed in congressional offices, so those are on the Hill. Interns work, because we are a nonpartisan organization, they can be placed either in a Republican office or a Democrat office, as well as in committee internships. A lot of times that's in a congressional office that's associated with the state you're from or where you go to school. Our interns are also placed at federal agencies. So some examples, we've had interns do internships with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, with the Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, or the Department of Energy, for example. Our interns also intern with nonprofit organizations. So that could be maybe disability-specific nonprofits, maybe like the National Disability Rights Network, or I'm thinking like the Center for American Progress's Disability Justice Initiative, which is actually one of the nonprofits, one of our alumni that you'll be hearing from today was placed at. But we can also have nonprofits that are not disability specific, that might be a wide variety of issues, whether that's something like the Human Rights Campaign or the National Leadership Consortium on Civil and Human Rights. So it's really kind of a wide variety. And if you're interested in seeing some of the nonprofits that we've partnered with, again, I would check that placement site overview, which hopefully a link is shared in the chat for that. The last type of placement site that our interns work at are for-profit organizations. So some of those are big name places you might know, like T-Mobile, We've worked with healthcare organizations like Elevance Health or CareSource, but it also might be a small startup or a consulting organization. So it's kind of a wide variety of for-profit placements. During the application, you'll be asked to share your preference for placement sites. So I definitely encourage you to take a look at some of the past placements and think about what kind of placement site you might be interested in. This year, there are 2 specific opportunities within our internship program, one that we've had for a few years and one that's new. These are just 2 spots within the total of 20 interns that we're planning to bring on into this year's cohort. So the 2 opportunities are the Microsoft STEM intern and the Bobby Silverstein Fellow. So the Microsoft STEM internship is for interns who might have an interest in technology, accessibility, or thinking about the disability community's relationship with technology. And those interns will be placed at a federal agency. They need to have a background in a STEM major, anything that's science, technology, engineering, or math. Because this intern will be placed at a federal agency, federal agencies have a requirement for US citizenship in order to do their background check process. So only US citizens can be considered for the Microsoft STEM intern. For students who are not citizens, maybe international students with an interest in STEM, you can still be a part of the internship program. You would just apply just for the internship itself and not specifically for the Microsoft STEM role. And we can talk more about that in the Q&A if there are questions. The second opportunity is the Bobby Silverstein Fellowship. This is for interns who might have a strong interest in disability issues from a legal standpoint. So those who are interested in law or pre-law. In order to be a Bobby Silverstein Fellow, you need to be a rising junior, so your 3rd year in college or higher. So maybe you're a law student or a recent graduate. And this intern will need to participate in person in Washington, D.C. for the program. The Bobby Silverstein Fellow has 1 extra essay question. So if you want to be considered for this fellow, you should mark interest in the application and be sure to fill out the extra essay question. If you are not interested in the Bobby Silverstein Fellow and don't want to be considered, you don't need to complete the 4th essay question. All right, so moving on, in addition to the work at the placement site itself, we have the Disability Advocacy Certificate Program. The certificate program is the class that you take on Fridays during the summer. And the focus on the class is around advocacy and storytelling. Every week we work on around a different topic, whether that's about policy and advocacy, if it's about the levels of advocacy, or if it's about a specific tactic. And we bring in a number of guest speakers who are disabled advocates and have engaging class discussions. During the certificate program, you also get to complete certain assignments. For example, we've had interns work on a policy memo about an issue of importance, practice telling their story using a digital medium. So making a TikTok video about an issue that they care about, and telling a story of their own experience as it relates to the issue. And then all of our interns have participate in advocacy plan presentations. So it's a group project where you and some other people in your cohort focus on an issue of importance to the disability community and share a final presentation. So those are just some of the assignments we've had in the past. And the certificate program is an opportunity to really connect with others in your cohort and learn more about yourself as an advocate, or focus on how to improve your disability advocacy. Some other aspects of the program are a focus on mentorship and community building. I added 3 photographs to this slide from a number of different events. One is from our 20th anniversary celebration that has intern alum and our program director signing to each other on a rooftop overlooking the Capitol building. Another photo is some of our 2023 summer interns smiling for a photo inside of the White House in front of a photograph of the signing of the ADA. And then the third photo is from the 2024 cohort's community reception in DC, and has a few of the 2024 interns and some alumni smiling for a photo outside. Mentorship and community building are a large part of this program. Everyone in the program is paired one-to-one with a mentor, where they can, work out issues they might be having at their placement site or get career advice. And then we also have a number of community events and networking opportunities. We share different events happening in DC, online, or in a hybrid format, as well as host some events just for this cohort to build relationships or to connect with other disabled people in the disability community. All right, so how to apply? So the application includes a few different sections focused on providing some general information, resumes and references, your preference for the placement site, the bulk of it being 3 essay questions, and then an optional demographic section. So I'll go through each in turn. First is general information. So it'll ask for some contact information, and they'll ask a few questions about your eligibility. So again, to be eligible for the program, you must identify as a person with disability, and you must be a current student or a recent graduate from a US-based program or university. By recent graduate, that's 5 years after graduation, so summer 2020 and on. We'll also ask some questions about how you learned about the program and how you learned about AAPD. For your resume, it'll ask for you to upload a current copy of your resume. We ask for that to be in a screen reader accessible format, since some of our reviewers may be people who use screen readers. And just share information about your past experiences. Your resume shouldn't be longer than 2 pages. And we can chat more if people have questions about the resume requirement. There's also a section to share the contact information of your references. We don't need or accept letters of recommendation, but instead we just need the name, email, and phone number of someone who could serve as a reference if that's needed later in the process. We don't contact everyone's reference. We just collect their information in the event we need to do a reference check. At least one of your references should be a professional reference. So this could be an employer, it could be a professor, it could be someone who knew you from a professional experience you had. And then the other one can be personal. It could be a neighbor, a church leader, a coach, or someone else who's familiar with you and why you would be good for this program. All right, so the internship preferences, we already went through the different types of placement sites. So there'll be questions asking you what placement type you would prefer as your first choice, and which you would prefer as your second choice. It also has an option to select if you're interested in the Microsoft STEM or the Bobby Silverstein internships. And then it asks for your preference if you want to be joining in person, which means you're staying in the dorms in Washington, DC. If you want to be joining remotely from wherever you live, or if you're flexible. This is something that might change, but we encourage you to choose which option most relates to what you're looking for out of the summer program. The application has 3 essay questions. The first is focused on your leadership style. The second is your proudest achievement. The third is focused on how you would realistically address a different disability issue. There is a fourth essay question that's optional unless you, and it's only required for those who want to be considered for the Bobby Silverstein position. So again, you need to be eligible for the Bobby Silverstein, and if you would like to be considered, you need to submit an essay question to the fourth essay. If you don't want to be considered, you don't need to fill it out. Our hope from the essay questions and our advice to applicants is to be as specific as possible, to share, unique details so that your application stands out, and to really give us a sense of what your approach to leadership is, and how you as a college student or recent grad might think about these issues our community faces. The last section of the application is the demographics section. The section is optional. We just use this information to ensure that our process is equitable and that we have a diverse group of interns in our final cohort. The demographics that we collect are disability, sexual orientation, gender, veteran status, race, age, and religion. And all of these are open-ended questions. And again, they're optional. And then for the application timeline, the application is due on October 10th at 5 p.m. The application can be submitted using a SurveyMonkey link, which is where you actually enter the application information itself. But you can preview the questions by going to the Google document version of the application. The applications will be reviewed in mid-October, and interviews will be conducted from late October through November, maybe even into December. Our hope is to make decisions by mid-December. So everyone should expect to hear back from us either way by the end of this year. All right. And so from there, I wanted to take a moment for you all to get to meet two of our alumni and hear a little bit about their experiences. So I am excited to introduce you all to both Maria Medina, who is a 2024 remote summer intern, and Christina Stafford, who was a 2023 in-person intern. So I'll stop sharing my screen here and welcome both of them. I'll give a moment for them to be added as spotlights. Hello. Wonderful. Well, I'm excited to have you both here. Thanks for taking the time to share about your experience with this year's interested applicants. So if you could get us started by just introducing yourself. You can share your name and pronouns, a brief visual description, and then a little bit about your internship year, where you did your internship and what format, and what you're up to now. So I will pass it first to Christina.
Hello, I'm Christina Stafford. I use the pronouns she, her. I am a young Black woman with locks in my hair and glasses and a gray sweater on. I did my internship in 2023, and I was remote, or I was in person in the dorms in DC, but my placement site was hybrid, so that I was in person in the office for 2 days, and I was at home in the dorms for 2 other days. And I worked at Center for American Progress for the Disability Justice Initiative. And what I'm up to now is I am a senior at Elon University, and I am applying for different grad school programs for both master's and doctorate programs in political theory.
That is so exciting to see your journey over the last 2 years, and I wish you luck with those applications. It's a big deal. So thanks for sharing a little bit of that. And what about you, Maria?
Hi, yes, thank you, Katie. My name's Maria Medina. I use she, her, AR pronouns. I was a part of the summer 2024 internship program. I was at Unlock Access, which it is an organization focused on disability consulting. I was fully remote. Oh, my visual description. I'm so sorry. I'm a light skinned Latina with my hair's up in a ponytail. I have light brown hair. I'm wearing oval glasses and a black t-shirt. Um, and as far as what I'm up to now, I recently graduated a month ago. I graduated graduate school and I am exploring job opportunities.
Amazing and congrats, such an exciting accomplishment and news to me as of today. I know because you just finished your summer experience. And I'm excited to hear both from both of you about kind of what it was like. What was your day-to-day experience like at your internship? What exactly were your roles you were working on? We often get that question where people are like, what am I gonna do? So what was your day-to-day like? What were you working on that summer? Either of you are welcome to go first.
Yeah, I can start. So like I said, I was interning for Center for American Progress's Disability Justice Initiative, and the main task that I was responsible for the day to day, I was helping on research projects that the initiative already had ongoing. So I was helping with the groundwork of researching whether there was programs that we need to reach out to, helping with spreadsheets, things like that. I was also helping with the social media. So I was making tweets and sharing information and news articles about disability initiatives. And then I was also attending conferences and panels on disability justice issues. So, in some cases, I was able to attend White House or congressional panels. I was also able to attend conferences in the DC area while I was there. So, I had a kind of large variety of different things I was doing from day to day.
As far as myself, I like I mentioned before, I work at Unlock Access, and they focus on disability consulting. So while I was there, I worked on a sustainability project with my supervisor for an organization that was wanted to expand disability justice projects. And part of that sustainability project was analyzing websites for the area and seeing if these websites really brought an attention to disability justice, and through this kind of connecting the dots and figuring out if disability was something that that particular area was interested in learning about. I also worked on a newsletter month to month for the organization, and towards the end of my time there, I also did I helped her with the minimum wage project. So yeah, that's what my day to day looked like. As a remote intern, I would check in on Monday, and she would kind of give me a rundown of what my projects were that week. She was available throughout the week. But if I always had to check out on Thursday. So that's what my day to day would look like.
This is Katie. Thank you so much, Maria. I also think that's a common question we get about what it's like working remotely. So I appreciate you adding kind of how you checked in regularly with your supervisor and were able to participate in the internship remotely. So leading off that, I know both of you bring different experiences. Christina as an in-person intern and Maria as a remote intern. Can you share a little bit more about what your experience was like and what people might expect as they're trying to decide between being remote or in person? Yeah, Maria, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should go first. I really enjoyed it. I would say that something that I had to really um get, adjusted to was task management and task analysis. So really being able to kind of say, okay, this is gonna take me a certain amount of time. So I'm gonna work on this first, and then I'll focus on this later. But I feel like I really enjoyed being able to kind of, voice my accommodations, like what accommodations I needed as a remote intern, and, working that out with my supervisor and kind of reaching that compromise of, I'm going to need more time on this, or I think I'm going to need more assistance on this. So I feel like that's what I really enjoyed is the flexibility. Um, but yeah, that's something that I did have to kind of learn is the task management and the task analysis of it all as a remote intern.
And then for me, as an in-person intern who's going into the office 2 days a week, I think one of the things that I came to really enjoy about it was getting to experience kind of navigating transportation every day throughout the week, going into the office and figuring out what that was like. And then when I got into the office, the experience was really also focused a lot on making sure I made the connection with my coworkers, making sure that, I got to know other interns that were also interning with Center for American Progress at the time. And so that was definitely a good experience that I got to have there. And I also got to have a little bit of both worlds. So I got to be a hybrid on 2 days. And that one was definitely more focused on trying to figure out what work styles worked best for me when I was at home versus when I was at the office. Trying to figure out the best like communication methods for me and my supervisor when we were both in the office or when we were both at home. So I think both of those experiences kind of helped me to expand both my professional skills and my experiences.
This is Katie. Thank you so much for sharing that, Christina. And I think your experience is very similar to a lot of interns who end up working hybrid for their internship and sometimes can learn about like, is that a good type of placement for you? Do you prefer in-person? Do you prefer remote? You can try a little bit of both. But either way, it sounds like both of you gained a lot from navigating that workplace setting with your supervisor in these different kinds of formats, which continues to be the case as a lot of offices in DC have not converted to being fully in person like they were before the pandemic. A lot still have hybrid work or remote opportunities. So it's I'm glad you both got something out of that experience with the choice of format. And while obviously the internship is a huge part of the AAPD internship program, there is so much more to it. It expands into our Friday disability advocacy certificate program classes, one-to-one mentoring, and ongoing virtual community events, as well as in-person or hybrid like networking opportunities. So could you talk about what your favorite experiences was from the summer with AAPD as a whole, maybe sharing a little bit of insight into one of those areas?
I feel like for me, I really enjoyed the advocacy certificate program just because I learned so much from the guest speakers that were there, and I also learned new tactic. I don't know if you would call it techniques, but like the policy memo writing, which is something I had never done before. Just new skills overall. And I also feel like the community events were really something I enjoyed because it allowed me to connect to all the interns that were also in-person interns or hybrid interns. So yeah, those were some of my favorite parts.
For me, I definitely think the community events were a highlight as well. I enjoyed the fact that some of them allowed me to both get to know interns, but also just different advocates within the disability community. So I was able to really broaden my network there, and I met a lot of amazing people who I already either knew about or had looked up to for a while. And then I got to also learn about so many different other people who were doing amazing work. So those were really, really big highlights for me. And I think also the mentoring experience, I think me and my mentor were able to meet a little bit over the summer and kind of share our experiences, and that kind of one-on-one session was really helpful to kind of see, okay, this is a potential path, this is someone I can lean on, this is someone I can really ask a lot of questions from, and so that was also really helpful experience.
Thank you both so much for sharing a little bit about those different parts. And I know as we move into the Q&A, more stories might come out from your experience with the many different parts of your summer, which can often be really complex. But I wanted to end this panel part with just one last question, which is, what advice would you give to new AAPD interns or people who are interested in being AAPD interns, like many people who are here today?
I think for me, at least one of the biggest fears I had coming into the program was, as someone with a disability, the fear of not being accommodated. And I would say, don't be afraid of that. Both AAPD and my internship site were very, very supportive. And they allowed me to see that accommodations are a possibility in the workplace as someone with a disability. So I would say that just don't be nervous about, potential accommodations or coming in with your disability, and enjoy the process and learn as much as time permits you to.
And I think for me, it would be to really recognize that this is an opportunity for community. I definitely came into it from not having that many experiences, being able to kind of be in person or even on a online space with the disability community. So it was a really great opportunity for me to see in person how our community can lift each other up and can really build strong relationships that can help each other along the way. And I think that that was kind of one of the most meaningful parts of it. So to really not be afraid to put yourself out there and to get to know your fellow interns and the people around you.
Thanks so much, Christina and Maria, for both of your reflections. Super helpful to just hear from people who have been in those shoes and have been through the experience. Just to know about what you can get out of it, and this idea of like leaning in or putting yourself out there to get the most out of it is definitely a trend I've heard from knowing and getting to know so many different AAPD interns. I think every intern gets something different out of the summer, but interns who get the most out of it have really lived it. So thank you both, and I will transition us now into some Q&A. How we'll do the Q&A is, again, you can drop your questions into the question and answer box. I see we already have some, which is awesome. And I will read the question aloud. I might reply from AAPD's end, but also Maria and Christina might add in their own thoughts about some of these questions or what that was like in their own experience. So we can get started. I see one question about personal care assistance. So this is a common question we get. Dexter asks, if you require a personal care assistant for the program, will AAPD help logistically or financially find one? So I'm happy to share my answer from AAPD, and then maybe Maria, you can share a little bit about your example, since I know you had a PCA this summer.
Absolutely.
So AAPD often has interns with PCAs who participate in the program. There are some things that we do provide. We can provide for the travel expenses and coordination for your PCA. We can pay for the hotel, or if you're an in-person intern, provide a room in GW housing for your PCA. So we pay for some of those costs to make it work for your PCA to be in DC, but we don't provide support with actually securing or financing the personal care assistance, at least at this time. So that support might be helping connect you with an alum who has gone through that process and navigated it to get advice, or to share some ways that other people in the past have been able to make it work. That's more so the support is advice, but AAPD doesn't provide a PCA or the funding directly for the PCA services itself, just for the travel and hotel accommodations. So Maria, I'm wondering if you want to share a little bit about your experience in navigating that.
Yeah, so we explored a couple of options, and Katie knows this. I went back and forth with Katie many times, because I wasn't sure if a family member was going to be able to accompany me. So I did explore the option of, finding someone else outside of my family, and ultimately, it turned out that I was able to work something out with my mom, and she actually accompanied me. And AAPD provided, just as Katie mentioned, hotel, travel, and the logistics of it all for both my mom and I to be able to travel to DC.
Thanks, Maria. And in the past, for interns who've been there longer, they might have also used different resources like Craigslist or care.com, or GW, which is the housing that we've used in the past. Also has like a jobs board that people have used to secure PCAs. So different interns have worked it out in different ways. Sometimes it's a family member, significant other. Sometimes it's from your own state's funding or your own healthcare funding. So it can be complex, but we have been able to accommodate people who require PCAs in the past. And if you have more specific questions, definitely Maria can attest that, I'm happy to call and talk about it and see what we can kind of make work. So thank you for that question. Someone asked what qualifies as a disability. So to be eligible for the program, you need to identify as a person with disability. We leave it really broad. You don't need to provide any documentation to prove that you have a disability, because we know that process is not always fair or equitable. And it can be really hard for people to get a diagnosis or to get the paperwork to prove they have a disability. So we keep the definition really broad and are just looking for people who identify as a part of the disability community. We are a cross-disability organization, so that means we have disabled people with all different kinds of experiences that are part of our program. And some of the benefit of this program is actually learning from cross-disability experiences to even broaden what your own understanding of disability is. So this could be people with mental health disabilities, people who have chronic health conditions, maybe people who have disabling experiences due to an illness that people might not think of, like cancer, for example, might be considered a disability. People with physical disabilities that you might more think of. It can also include people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's truly really broad. And the most important thing, and the only time you'll ever be asked, is, do you identify as a person with a disability, yes or no? And so you have to identify as a person with disability to be a part of the program. So hopefully that answers the question for that. So then we had a question about SSI and public benefits. This is also a pretty common question that we get, is around how these are paid internships, so how to accept the pay of the stipend and navigate that if you receive public benefits. So interns in the past have participated in the program while receiving public benefits. It's something that AAPD is able to help provide support and navigate around. Some things we've done in the past has been providing letters to SSA for interns that need it to clarify the payment that you received and provide documentation for this experience as a stipend payment and not a full-time employment. We've also been able to adjust the payment stipends to keep the number lower per month and kind of spread the payment out over longer periods of months so that it doesn't affect maybe how much income you can have in a certain time period. And sometimes, yeah, we really try to work one-on-one with the intern to find a solution. We're willing to be creative about what makes that work. And then in most cases, we are able to find a way to adjust our process so that people who receive public benefits can participate in our program. So I wasn't sure if either of you had any experience with this you wanted to share, but I'll leave it open.
Yeah, this is something that I personally, have kind of I'm still trying to figure out, but I will say that Katie and AAPD have been super supportive and trying to help me find solutions and alternatives and ways to um, make this work. So I would just say that if this is a concern that somebody has that may be keeping them or they're hesitant to apply to AAPD because of it, don't keep it from you know keep it from making you apply. It's something that you know AAPD can definitely help you with and support you with. And
Thank you so much for that answer. And I'm going to mark that one as answered. I lost it somewhere in the middle. We have so many questions. This is great. Just marking them. All right. So there's a question we received about international students, so I'll read this out loud. What about international students? There are two people on the line from Romania. Welcome. Our background is in literature. We're interested in the certificate and the fellowship. We'd love to learn about capacity building in community. So is US citizenship required? Can you be eligible in person or remotely? And then they included some extra information. I think the question came off. So I'm happy to answer this question for both you and your friend, as well as for other international students or non-US citizens that might be on the call. So in order to be an AAPD intern, you need to be affiliated with a US-based university, college, or program. So if you are students at a non-US university, then you wouldn't be eligible to apply, unfortunately. So it sounds like for your specific instance, because you're students at a Romanian university, you wouldn't be eligible for the AAPD internship program. For interns that are international students studying at a US-based school, you would be eligible to apply. There might just be some placement sites that we aren't able to place you at because they do require US citizenship. Typically, these are federal agencies or congressional offices, but it could be case by case what placement sites require. We just require that people have work authorization. And so for international students, sometimes you might need to work with your university to make sure that you can participate in the program. And that's something AAPD has navigated in the past. We're able to provide letters to the university that often manages the work authorization for CPT and OPT, which are two programs that international students can use to do work while they're students or after they graduate. So yes, and then for non-citizens that are not international students, maybe students who are undocumented, the requirements for the program are that you have work authorization. We don't have any I-9 verification because you're not considered employees of AAPD. Instead, you will receive a 1099 tax form in January, which is a form that you get when you are compensated as an independent contractor. Some placement sites again require US citizenship, and some might be more welcoming of students who are maybe DACA students, undocumented, or international students. And so I just like to walk through what that is. If you are in that situation and have more questions or want to understand better what I was talking about, you can always send us an email at internships@aapd.com, and we can provide additional information. All right. Okay. Okay, so there's a couple questions about the Bobby Silverstein Fellowship, which is new program for AAPD. Someone asked if they can still do the Bobby Fellowship if they're not a junior or a senior in college. So if that's the case, you wouldn't be able to be a Bobby Silverstein Fellow, but you could still be an AAPD intern. So if you're interested in law or disability law or what Bobby Silverstein's legacy is, you can still do law-focused internships as an AAPD intern. So I would encourage you to apply, but I wouldn't select the Bobby Silverstein option. And you would, if you apply to the Bobby Silverstein or the Microsoft and you don't get that role, you can still be considered for the general internship program. So we have 20 spots available, and 2 of them are for the Microsoft STEM and the Bobby Silverstein, but the remaining 18 are just for AAPD summer interns. So more or less, they're all the same when it comes to the summer. People won't really know the difference, but they might have a separate opportunity with Microsoft. Maybe your mentors from Microsoft, or for the Bobby Silverstein, you might meet with Bobby Silverstein's family or get placed at a specific placement. So I would apply if you're interested in those opportunities. And if you have an interest in STEM or an interest in law, you can still apply for a general role and get placed at similar kinds of placement sites to either of these 2, even if you don't get those 2. Okay. So someone asked a question about the housing stipend or other kinds of compensation. I saw that as a question. Maybe I'll answer 2 in 1. So AAPD interns receive a living stipend. This past summer, that was the more or less the equivalent of $18 an hour. And that's your living stipend. You can use it to pay for your living expenses. Our remote interns also receive an internet stipend to pay for their home internet that they'll use during the summer to complete their internships. AAPD interns that are in-person interns will live in the dorm, so they'll receive their housing by AAPD for the summer. But for remote interns, we do have a relatively new housing stipend available. This is an additional fund. It's been in the past up to $2,000 a month that you can use to cover the costs of housing. That money is dispersed in your stipend check, but it is considered taxable income. So if you want to pay for your own housing in our remote intern, you can indicate that your need for the housing stipend, and then AAPD works out based on how much you pay every month for your housing in your area, a stipend amount that's specific to what you need. So yeah, remote interns are eligible for the housing stipend. In-person interns get their housing from AAPD. For our remote interns, there's also one last stipend available, which is our technology stipend. So if you need some technology in order to participate remotely, AAPD will cover the cost of that technology. All right, I think that answered that question. Okay. One other part related to that is I see a question about the difference between hourly pay and the housing stipend. So yes, the living stipend, just to clarify, is separate from the housing stipend. So the housing stipend is just to cover the cost of housing, and your living stipend is the $18 an hour, and that's what you would use to cover other living expenses. All right, there's a couple questions about like CVs or resumes, which I'm sure both of you have had to put together when you were doing your application. So I'll ask you to recall back to whatever that was like for you. But Conrad asked the question, would a CV work in place of a resume as long as the CV is under 2 pages? Yes, that is fine if you'd prefer to send a CV. CVs are typically much longer, and we just have a requirement of 2 pages. But if your CV is under 2 pages, then I'm fine with receiving it in that format. Someone else asked, okay, if we have a CV with publications or presentations, should we submit that, or should we just have a work experience focused resume? So we want to see any experiences that you bring to the internship program that would make you a good fit for the program. We try to keep the resume short because that's what you'll need when you're job searching, since most resumes are 2 pages or less. And they should be, when you submit a CV or a resume, it should really adjust to, well, a resume should address to the job that you're applying. So we really want to see what experiences relate to this role. I'm wondering if Maria or Christina, you have any advice for, putting together your application, tips for, what you might include in your resume, or how you figured out what to include or not include. Any tips for applicants?
Yeah, I think especially coming from a college student who may not have like as much experience with resumes or CVs, I think one of the biggest keys for me was figuring out exactly which experiences I wanted to tailor towards my application because, I had a lot of experiences that I had, even some going back to high school, that I could have included. But I think a key part of it was making sure that the ones I did include were not only relevant to what I wanted to do in the internship, but also were within a time frame that was also relevant. So I think making sure that you kind of keep it within a few year span and show that these are things that you're going to bring these skills into the internship go a huge way into your application.
Yeah, I agree with Christina. I also really focused on what, skills that I had previously done were transferable to AAPD. But I would also say, don't underestimate the experience you may have. I know as someone who didn't have a lot of like paid work experience, I kind of, wasn't sure what was relevant. But I would say don't underestimate, the experiences that you may have, and as long as you feel like they're relevant to your what you hope to gain from the experience, um, don't be shy on including those experiences.
Thank you so much to both of you and for emphasizing that last point, especially Maria, because yes, AAPD is really open to a variety of experiences that would make you qualified. And a lot of times people might be shy and think, oh, I don't have experience, but you really do. You have lived experience, you've been a part of something. And so, yeah, we can keep it pretty broad for this kind of a role, to really learn what you have to offer to this cohort, and why you want to be a part of the program. So I'm noticing that we're just at time, so I'm going to wrap up here. I do know there were a number of questions we didn't get to. So usually what I do is I follow up with a written version of all the questions we received in a commonly asked questions document. So I'll respond to anything that wasn't there. I did see one that got 2 different people asking about GPA requirements. We don't have any GPA requirements, so I'll just answer that one since it's quick. But for anyone else who didn't have your question answered live, I'll follow up over email once the recording's ready, again in the next week or so. But if you have a specific individual question, or want to talk it through more, feel free to send us an email, again, to internships@aapd.com. So we really hope to see your applications. We're excited to start the process of finding our newest cohort. You can find all of the information we were talking about today on our webpage, as well as the link to apply. And a reminder, the deadline is October 10th. So you have a couple weeks to finish it up, but let us know if you have any questions. And thank you again to our 2 alumni for sharing their experiences and for everyone joining. We hope you have a good rest of your day.